The Galactic Council, a powerful organization of alien species, had ruled over the galaxy for centuries. They were known for their strict laws and iron grip on every planet they governed. For most civilizations, crossing the Council's rules was unthinkable, but humans were different. Humanity had only recently joined the galactic community, and many still saw them as a young, unpolished species. Captain Noah Carter, a seasoned leader of the Earth Alliance, had worked tirelessly to protect Earth's place in this vast galaxy. He had negotiated peace treaties, brokered trade deals, and defended his people from various threats. However, he never expected that one day his own people would be accused of breaking an unknown law by the very organization they were trying to cooperate with. It all started during a regular meeting of the Galactic Council. Carter and his crew had been summoned to the Council's headquarters, located in the heart of the galaxy. The massive space station was home to representatives from hundreds of alien races, each more advanced than humanity in various ways. It was a place of power, where the fate of entire civilizations was decided. The humans had been invited to the meeting to discuss trade agreements, but something strange happened. As the meeting began, a tall, imposing alien stepped forward. It was Zorgath, a high-ranking member of the Galactic Council, known for his cold demeanor and unwavering loyalty to the Council's laws. His species, the Vraxians, were some of the oldest and most powerful in the galaxy. Zorgath's voice echoed through the chamber, sending a chill through the room. "Humanity," he began, his tone sharp and accusing, "is in violation of the Galactic Code. You have broken a law that your species knows nothing about, but should have respected. You have interfered in the natural evolution of another species, and for that, you will face consequences." The room fell silent. Every eye turned toward Carter. He felt a wave of confusion and disbelief. How could this happen? Earth had always respected galactic laws, and this was the first time anyone had even hinted that they might be in the wrong. Zorgath continued, explaining that humanity had unknowingly caused harm to an alien species on the outer rim of the galaxy by intervening in their cultural practices. The Council claimed that humans had disrupted their social order, even though Earth had acted with the best of intentions, trying to help a species that was struggling with its own challenges. Carter stood up slowly, his heart racing. This wasn't the way things were supposed to go. His mind raced through all the decisions Earth had made, trying to figure out where things had gone wrong. He knew the Council was powerful, but he also knew that humanity had something the Council underestimated: resilience. With a calm voice, Carter spoke up, his words firm and full of determination. "We never meant to harm anyone. We only acted to help. If there's been a misunderstanding, we will fix it, but we will not bow to threats." Zorgath's eyes narrowed. "You will bow, Captain. You will bow to the Council, or you will face the consequences. The choice is yours." Carter's mind spun, but one thing was clear. This wasn't just about an accusation. It was about something bigger. The Council had crossed a line, and humanity was ready to stand its ground. Captain Noah Carter stood at the head of the Earth Alliance's war room, his eyes fixed on the star map that flickered on the wall. The accusations from the Galactic Council still echoed in his mind, growing louder with each passing moment. The Vraxians had claimed humanity had disrupted the natural order of another species. Earth had been accused of violating galactic laws that they hadn't even known existed. For most, this would be enough to give in, to apologize and accept the consequences. But not Carter, not humanity. "We won't back down," Carter said, his voice steady, but filled with a fire that could be felt in the room. His crew, a group of humans who had fought beside him for years, stood around him, listening closely. "They think we're weak." Lieutenant Emma Stevens, his second-in-command, spoke up. "That we're just another species they can push around. But they don't know what humanity is capable of." Carter nodded. "Exactly. We've always been underestimated. But it's time to show them that they made a mistake." The war room was filled with a sense of determination. The humans had always been resilient. But this This was different. The Galactic Council, with its many factions, had always seen humanity as a young species. They believed Earth was still in its infancy when it came to space exploration and diplomacy. But what the Council didn't understand was that humans had something far greater than technology or experience. They had resolve. They had an inner strength that had allowed them to survive through countless struggles, from wars to natural disasters, and still thrive. "We need to send a message," Carter continued, his voice now cutting through the room. "We'll show them that we are a force to be reckoned with. We may not have the advanced technology of some of the other species, but we have ingenuity. We have courage. And we will not let anyone threaten our home." The crew stood in silence, taking in their captain's words. They knew this wouldn't be easy. The Galactic Council had armies, fleets of ships, and weapons that could wipe Earth off the map in an instant. But Carter knew that the real strength of humanity lay in their determination to fight for what was right, to never give up, no matter the odds. "We'll need to prepare," Emma said after a pause, glancing at the crew. "Our fleet is ready, but we'll need more. More strategy, more coordination. If we're going to challenge the Council, we need to be smarter." Carter agreed. "We'll have to rely on our wits. This isn't about brute force. It's about outthinking them. We'll start by contacting our allies in the galaxy, anyone who doesn't want to see the Council maintain this kind of power." The humans were not alone. Over the years, they had made friends with various alien species, some small and others powerful. Some were hesitant to get involved in galactic politics, but many had their own reasons to oppose the Council's tyranny. Carter knew that humanity could not face this battle alone, but together, with their allies, they had a chance. "We'll fight for our freedom," Carter said, his voice unwavering, "and we will not let the Council control us." As the crew began making preparations, Carter couldn't help but feel the weight of the responsibility on his shoulders. The fate of Earth rested on their shoulders now, but he wasn't afraid. If humanity had taught him anything, it was that they always found a way to survive. And in this fight, they would not be pushed aside. The emergency summit was called swiftly, and Captain Noah Carter knew it would be the most important meeting of his life. The Galactic Council had summoned him to explain humanity's position, to defend Earth against accusations that still seemed absurd to him. As the humans made their way to the vast meeting hall of the Galactic Council's headquarters, Carter couldn't help but feel the weight of the situation pressing down on him. The room was full of beings who had lived for centuries. Alien species whose civilizations stretched back far beyond humanity's history. And yet, Earth was now standing on the edge of something far greater than anyone could have imagined. Inside the council chamber, the atmosphere was tense. The walls were made of smooth, metallic surfaces that seemed to hum with energy. The seats were arranged in a large circle, with representatives from various alien species sitting in their respective places, each looking down at the humans as they entered. The council members were a strange mix, some tall and imposing, others smaller but with eyes that seemed to pierce through to the very core of a person. As Carter walked to the front of the room with his crew, all eyes followed him. He could feel the weight of the gaze of the Vraxians, the race that had brought the accusations against humanity. Zorgath, the one who had spoken during the last meeting, sat at the center of the circle, his eyes cold and calculating. "Captain Carter," Zorgath began, his voice as sharp as ever, "it seems your people have failed to understand the consequences of your actions. The Galactic Code is not to be ignored." Carter stood tall, his hands resting on the surface of the table in front of him. The faces of his crew were focused, each person ready to fight for Earth's survival. Carter took a deep breath before speaking. "With all due respect, Counselor Zorgath, humanity has always respected the laws of the galaxy. We've acted to help, not harm. We've never interfered with another species in a way that would disrupt their society. If we've made a mistake, we are ready to make things right, but we won't accept false accusations." The room fell silent. Carter's words hung in the air, thick with the tension of what was to come. The council members exchanged looks, some appearing unimpressed, others intrigued. Carter could feel that the Council wasn't used to being challenged in this way. Most species in the galaxy feared the Council's power, but humanity wasn't afraid. They had learned the hard way that sometimes standing your ground was the only way to survive. "You speak of respect, Captain," Zorgath said, his tone dripping with disdain. "But you and your people are naive. You do not understand the balance of the galaxy. Your interference could have caused irreparable damage to a species that has lived in harmony for millennia. This cannot be overlooked." Carter's heart raced, but his face remained calm. "We didn't know about your so-called balance. If there is a law we broke, we'll fix it. But Earth will not be bullied into submission by threats. We demand fairness." The Council murmured among themselves, and for a moment, Carter thought they might not listen. But then a voice spoke up from the back of the room, an unfamiliar alien species, one that had never been part of the Council before. "I believe the Captain," the alien said. "Humanity has been nothing but helpful to us. Perhaps there has been a misunderstanding." The voice was soft, but it carried a weight that turned heads. It was a species that had only recently made contact with humanity, and their support could be a turning point. Carter didn't know who this alien was, but it was clear that the winds of change were blowing. Zorgath's expression darkened, but he said nothing. The meeting had only just begun, but already the foundation of the Council's power was beginning to crack. The days following the emergency summit were tense. The Galactic Council had made it clear that they expected humanity to bow to their authority, but Captain Noah Carter knew they couldn't allow that to happen. Humanity had already faced too many challenges, and they weren't about to be crushed by the weight of the Council's demands. The Earth Alliance had a plan that would send a message not just to the Council, but to the entire galaxy. Inside the war room aboard the flagship Independence, Carter stood before his crew, the entire room filled with the low hum of energy. His trusted second-in-command, Lieutenant Emma Stevens, stood at his side, her eyes focused on the data flowing on the screens in front of them. "We have to make sure this message is clear," Carter said, his voice firm. "The Council needs to understand that we will not be intimidated. We will not kneel." Stevens nodded, her hands hovering over the controls. "We've developed a transmission that will reach all corners of the galaxy. It's not just a statement. It's a declaration. It will go to the Council and anyone else who's listening." The message they were about to send wasn't just a plea for mercy. It was a challenge. Carter had been clear. Humanity would not be subjugated by a few powerful beings. Earth had no intention of abandoning its values of freedom, self-determination, and fairness. The transmission, though simple in nature, would be a stark contrast to the complex web of politics the Galactic Council had woven over the centuries. The message would show Earth as a young species, full of potential but unwilling to be silenced. It would highlight humanity's resolve, their desire to stand strong in the face of adversity. They didn't need to be the strongest. They just needed to prove they were capable of holding their ground. Stevens sent a quick look at Carter. "Ready when you are, sir." Carter took a deep breath, his eyes scanning the faces of his crew. Each one of them was committed to this fight. They all knew the risks. If the Council saw this as an act of rebellion, it could mean war. But Carter believed it was a risk worth taking. The universe needed to understand one thing: humans wouldn't just survive. They would thrive. "Send it," Carter commanded. Stevens pressed a button, and the message was sent. It wasn't a flashy broadcast or a technical marvel. It was just a simple, direct message. "We will not be controlled. We stand for freedom. We are humanity, and we refuse to be silenced." The transmission didn't just go to the Galactic Council. It spread far and wide, reaching the ears of other factions, alien species that had been watching from the sidelines. Many were curious about humanity's place in the galaxy, unsure of how to approach this young, rebellious species. Some were sympathetic to humanity's cause, others uncertain, but all were now aware of humanity's position. As the message left their ship and began to spread across the stars, Carter couldn't shake the feeling that this was just the beginning. The Council would undoubtedly retaliate, but they had no idea what they were up against. Humanity wasn't just fighting for survival. They were fighting for their right to stand as equals in the galaxy. The days after sending the message were filled with a sense of anticipation, but also growing fear. Captain Noah Carter and his crew knew the Galactic Council would not take humanity's defiance lightly. The Council had always been in control, and they were not about to let a young, rebellious species like humanity challenge their authority. Earth was about to face its greatest test yet. Inside the Independence's war room, Carter stood in front of the crew, his expression serious. "We've made our stand, and now we wait for the Council's response. But we can't wait too long. We need to prepare for whatever comes next." Lieutenant Emma Stevens, his second in command, looked at the screens in front of her, her fingers moving quickly over the controls. "We've already received a transmission. It's from the Council. They've mobilized their fleet. They want us to pay for our defiance." Carter's heart sank, but he didn't show it. "How bad is it?" Stevens hesitated for a moment, then spoke. "It's bad. The Council is sending their strongest warships. The Vraxians are leading the charge with a fleet of over 50 ships. They'll be here within days." The room fell silent. Everyone knew the Council's fleet was powerful, but facing an enemy like that head-on seemed like a suicide mission. Carter's crew was strong, but they were vastly outnumbered. Earth's fleet wasn't as large or advanced as the Council's forces, and the odds weren't in their favor. But there was one thing the Council hadn't considered. Humanity's strength wasn't in numbers or technology. It was in their spirit. Earth had always survived against the odds, and Carter knew that this time would be no different. "We don't need to match them ship for ship," Carter said, his voice steady. "We need to outthink them. The Council relies too much on their technology. They believe that because they have the bigger guns, they can win. But we can use their overconfidence against them." He turned to Stevens. "Start preparing the fleet for a hit-and-run strategy. We'll use our speed and agility to our advantage. We won't engage head-on. We'll strike fast, disable their ships, and then disappear into the shadows before they even know what hit them." Stevens nodded. "We've got the ships for it. I'll make sure we have our best pilots in place." The crew immediately began making preparations. They worked quickly, assembling a fleet of smaller, faster ships that could evade the Council's larger vessels. Carter knew the odds were still stacked against them, but this was humanity's chance to show the galaxy that they weren't going to be intimidated. They could survive, even thrive, against overwhelming odds. As the days passed, the tension on the Independence was palpable. The crew was nervous, but there was also a sense of purpose. Carter had given them a plan, a way to fight back. It was a risky move, but they had no choice but to try. If they failed, Earth could be destroyed. But if they succeeded, they would show the galaxy that humanity was a force to be reckoned with. Then, on the day the Council's fleet arrived, Carter stood on the bridge of the Independence, looking out into space. The fleet was massive, but humanity had something the Council didn't: hope. The fight for survival had begun. The moment had arrived. Captain Noah Carter stood at the command station of the Independence, watching as the massive fleet of the Galactic Council came into view. The vast blackness of space stretched out before them, dotted with the gleaming lights of the approaching warships. The Council's fleet was a force to be reckoned with, their ships large and well-armed. The odds of humanity winning this fight seemed impossible, but Carter wasn't about to give up. "Lieutenant Stevens," Carter called, his voice calm but filled with determination, "prepare the fleet. We're going to make our move before they expect it." Stevens, standing beside him at the console, nodded. "Everything is ready, sir. The smaller ships are prepped and ready to engage in hit-and-run tactics. We'll disable their weapons and engines, then fall back to avoid direct confrontation." Carter's eyes scanned the display of the Council's fleet, which was spread out across the stars like a mighty wall. He knew they were fast, but they had never faced an enemy that could fight like humanity. The Council's overconfidence in their advanced technology was their weakness, and Carter planned to exploit it. The Earth fleet, though smaller and less advanced, was agile. The humans had developed new tactics that the Council wasn't prepared for. They would fight in ways the Council couldn't predict, strategies that relied on speed, surprise, and adaptability. "Deploy the fighters," Carter commanded. "Let's make them regret underestimating us." As the order was given, the Independence's hangars opened, releasing a swarm of smaller ships that darted toward the enemy. These ships were built for speed, designed to dodge incoming fire and strike fast before disappearing into the vastness of space. The plan was simple: disable the Council's ships one by one and leave them stranded, their massive fleets no longer a threat. As the first wave of ships engaged, the Council was caught off guard. Their advanced weapons fired at the incoming human ships, but the Earth fleet was too fast, too unpredictable. The smaller human ships weaved in and out of the Council's larger vessels, disabling weapons and engines with pinpoint accuracy. Each strike was swift, each retreat quick and seamless. The Council's ships were left crippled, unable to keep up with the humans' tactics. But then, something unexpected happened. From the depths of the Independence, a hidden weapon was activated. A powerful energy cannon that had been in development for months, kept a secret from even Carter's own crew. It was a gamble, but Carter knew this was their chance to level the playing field. The weapon fired in a single, blinding flash, sending a shockwave across space. For a moment, the Council's fleet was stunned. Several of their ships lost power, their shields failing to withstand the sudden onslaught. It wasn't enough to destroy them, but it was enough to create chaos within their ranks. Carter watched as the Council's fleet scrambled to regroup. Their overconfidence had led them to believe their technology was unstoppable, but now they were losing their edge. The humans had done the impossible. They had forced the Council to fight on their terms. "Good work, everyone," Carter said, his voice filled with pride. "Let's keep this up. We've just shown them what humanity can do." The Council's fleet was in disarray, and for the first time, the humans had the upper hand. The battle was far from over, but Carter knew one thing: humanity had just taken its first step toward changing the balance of power in the galaxy. The battle raged on, and the tension in the air was thick. Captain Noah Carter stood on the bridge of the Independence, watching as the Galactic Council's fleet struggled to regain control. Despite their size and firepower, the humans had turned the tide in ways that no one could have predicted. The Council had underestimated humanity, and now they were paying the price. "Report, Lieutenant Stevens," Carter said, his voice steady as he watched the chaos unfold on the view screen. Stevens, who was at her station, glanced at the readouts. "We've disabled several of their ships, but they're starting to regroup. They've launched a counterattack, and their reinforcements are arriving." Carter nodded, his mind racing. This was it. The Council was reassembling, and their forces were getting stronger. The humans' tactics had given them an edge, but they couldn't keep this up forever. Carter knew they had to deliver a decisive blow before the Council's reinforcements arrived and overwhelmed them. "Prepare the fleet for one final push," Carter ordered. "We need to strike fast and hard. We won't get another chance." The crew worked quickly, reprogramming the ship's systems and coordinating with the smaller vessels. Carter's plan was simple: a final, concentrated assault on the heart of the Council's fleet, aimed at crippling their command ship. If they could take down the command center, they could force the Council to retreat and end this battle. As the fleet of human ships moved into position, Carter felt the weight of the moment. His heart pounded in his chest, but his mind was clear. This wasn't just about winning the battle, it was about sending a message to the galaxy. Humanity would not be subjugated. They would not kneel. "All ships, engage," Carter commanded. The Independence and the rest of the human fleet surged forward, pushing past the disabled Council ships and targeting the command ship at the heart of the enemy formation. The Council had expected humans to falter under pressure, but instead, the humans fought with a ferocity that no one had anticipated. Their smaller, faster ships darted in and out of the Council's defenses, making quick strikes, and then retreating before the Council's firepower could react. The battle was intense, with flashes of energy lighting up the darkness of space. Carter's crew worked with precision, each ship carrying out their orders to perfection. But as the human fleet pushed deeper into the Council's formation, they faced fierce resistance. The Council's command ship was heavily defended, and its weapons systems were relentless. "We're taking heavy fire, sir," Lieutenant Stevens shouted. "Shields are down to 30%. Carter's jaw tightened. They were close, so close. But the cost of victory was high. He had known the risks from the start. If they couldn't take down the command ship now, all their efforts would be in vain. "Stevens, target their main reactor," Carter ordered, his voice unwavering. "We're ending this now." With a quick nod, Stevens relayed the command. The Independence's energy cannon charged up once again, its power surging through the ship's systems. Carter's hands gripped the armrests of his seat, his eyes locked on the view screen. In a moment that felt like eternity, the cannon fired, a brilliant beam of energy cutting through the vastness of space, hitting the command ship directly. The explosion was massive, sending shockwaves through the enemy fleet. The Council's flagship was crippled, and its remaining ships faltered. The battle had turned in humanity's favor. As the Council's fleet began to scatter, Carter allowed himself a brief moment of relief. They had done it. They had taken down the Council's command ship. The galaxy would never forget this day. This part shows the climactic final push in the battle, where humanity makes its last stand and delivers a decisive blow to the Council. The tension builds as the humans fight to take down the command ship, using their agility and innovation to turn the tide of the war. The outcome is a hard-earned victory that sends a powerful message to the galaxy. The battle was over, and the silence of space seemed almost deafening in its aftermath. The remains of the Galactic Council's once mighty fleet drifted helplessly through the void, its ships now nothing more than twisted metal and damaged hulks. The Council's command ship, the heart of their power, was shattered beyond recognition, its remains scattering across the stars. Captain Noah Carter stood on the bridge of the Independence, staring at the devastation on the view screen. The fight had been fierce, but humanity had done the impossible. The Galactic Council, once the unchallenged authority in the galaxy, had been brought to its knees by a species they had deemed insignificant. Humanity had fought not just for survival, but for their place in the galaxy, and now the stars seemed a little less distant, a little less intimidating. "Report, Lieutenant Stevens," Carter said, his voice steady but filled with pride. Stevens, who had been at the tactical console, glanced up at him, her face a mixture of exhaustion and relief. "The Council's fleet is scattered. We've disabled most of their ships. A few of their smaller vessels are trying to escape, but their command structure has collapsed. They've lost their ability to coordinate." Carter nodded. "And the Council?" "Uncertain," Stevens replied. "Without the command ship, their leadership is in disarray. Some of their members are already retreating to their home systems, while others are, well, still trying to figure out what to do next." Carter's thoughts raced. The victory had been hard-fought, and the damage was significant. But this was only the beginning. The galaxy had witnessed humanity's resilience and strength. The Council had underestimated them, and now they would have to deal with the consequences. "We've won the battle," Carter said, his voice strong. "But this war isn't over yet. We've shown them that we won't be silenced. We've sent a message, and the rest of the galaxy is watching. We need to ensure that humanity's place is secured." The crew of the Independence was exhausted, but the atmosphere on the ship had shifted. No longer was there fear of the Council's power. Now there was hope and determination. Humanity had just proven that they could stand tall in the face of overwhelming odds. And now, the galaxy would have to adjust to that reality. As Carter looked out at the remnants of the Council's fleet, he realized that this was a turning point in galactic history. The Council's reign of fear and control had been shattered. New alliances would form, new power structures would emerge, and humanity, though still young in the eyes of the galaxy, would have a say in what came next. The transmission they had sent, the defiance they had shown, had sparked something. Other alien species, once silent and fearful, were beginning to take notice. Some might have already started to reach out to Earth, eager to see if they could ally with this new bold force. "Captain," Stevens said, breaking his thoughts, "we're receiving multiple signals from other systems. It looks like some of the smaller factions are already trying to contact us." Carter smiled. "Let's see who's reaching out. This galaxy is about to change, and humanity will be part of that change." The victory was bittersweet. They had lost friends, and many ships had been damaged. But the message was clear. Humanity was no longer just a small player in the galaxy. They had earned their place, and no one, not even the mighty Galactic Council, could take that away. This part marks the turning point, where humanity's victory over the Galactic Council shifts the balance of power in the galaxy. Carter's realization that this battle is only the beginning of a new era for humanity highlights the theme of growth and resilience. The chapter ends on a hopeful note, showing that humanity is now a force to be reckoned with in the galactic community. The aftermath of the battle was still settling in, and Captain Noah Carter stood before the large view screen aboard the Independence. His hands were clasped behind his back, and his eyes were fixed on the swirling stars ahead. The fleet had won, against all odds, but the victory felt strangely quiet. It was the kind of quiet that made him realize just how much had changed. The Galactic Council, once an unstoppable force that ruled the galaxy with fear and strict control, was now in chaos. Their fleet had been crippled, their command ship destroyed, and their leadership shattered. For the first time in centuries, their grip on the galaxy was slipping, and humanity, the species they had thought so weak, had delivered the blow that started the downfall. "Captain," Lieutenant Stevens spoke up, pulling him out of his thoughts. "We've been getting a lot of incoming messages. Several alien factions are reaching out to us. They're asking about our intentions now that the Council is in disarray." Carter turned and looked at her. "Are they asking for help, or are they testing us?" Stevens tapped a few buttons on her console, bringing up a series of messages. "Both. Some want to know if we're looking to take the Council's place as the new galactic power. Others are looking for allies, hoping to join forces with Earth." Carter thought for a moment. This was exactly what he had feared. While humanity had earned respect by defeating the Council, now other factions were looking at Earth as a potential new force in the galaxy. But Carter knew better than anyone that power came with responsibility, and if humanity wasn't careful, they could fall into the same trap that had ensnared the Council for centuries. "We need to be careful," Carter said, his voice measured. "We can't just take the Council's place. We can't become another oppressive force. Our goal is to bring fairness, freedom, and respect to the galaxy, not domination." Stevens nodded. "Understood, sir. So, what should we do with these messages?" "We respond with the truth," Carter said firmly. "Humanity won't dominate. We won't control the galaxy, but we'll stand for justice, and anyone who shares that vision will be welcomed." Carter looked at the view screen again, watching as the stars drifted by. There were still so many unknowns. The galaxy was full of strange, powerful species, some of which were eager to fill the vacuum left by the Council's fall. Humanity had earned a seat at the table, but they had to prove that they could handle the responsibility that came with it. A few moments later, Stevens handed him a new message that had just come through. "Captain, this is from the Zelrithians. They want to speak with us about forming an alliance." Carter's brow furrowed as he read the message. The Zelrithians were a warrior race, known for their strength and tactical brilliance. But their history was filled with bloodshed and conquest. An alliance with them could bring power, but at what cost? "Send a response," Carter said thoughtfully. "Tell them we're open to talks, but they need to know that humanity's terms are simple. No conquest, No war. If they want to join us, it's for peace or nothing. As Stevens relayed the message, Carter allowed himself a small smile. Humanity had faced impossible odds, but they had come out victorious. And now, the galaxy was watching to see if humanity could rise above the same pitfalls that had doomed so many before them. This part highlights the shifting balance of power in the galaxy after the Council's defeat. It explores humanity's responsibility as a new force and how they aim to navigate the complex relationships with other species. Carter's leadership and his vision for a peaceful future are central to this shift as humanity steps into its new role. The battle was won, the Council defeated, but the true challenge for humanity had just begun. As Captain Noah Carter stood on the bridge of the Independence, he couldn't help but feel the weight of what had happened. The Galactic Council had fallen, but the galaxy was not yet in their hands. It was fragile now, shifting, uncertain. And humanity, once just a small speck on the galactic map, was now a beacon for change. The Independence was floating in a quiet orbit near Earth, its systems humming peacefully. The crew had been given time to rest, but Carter knew that the peace they had won wouldn't last forever. The galaxy was watching, and many would be eager to see how humanity would lead, or if they would fall into the same traps as the Galactic Council had. "Captain," Stevens said as she approached, her voice steady but full of concern. "The Zelrithians have agreed to meet with us. They've asked to speak face to face, on neutral ground. They want to discuss terms for an alliance." Carter nodded. The Zelrithians were powerful and respected, but their history was one of conquest and war. Humanity could not afford to repeat the mistakes of the past. "Set up the meeting, but make it clear, we're not looking for allies through force. Our vision is different." Stevens glanced at him, clearly understanding. "Understood, Captain. I'll arrange everything." As Stevens went to carry out the order, Carter turned his attention to the view outside the bridge. Earth, his home, was small, but it was everything to him. A small blue planet on the edge of the galaxy, surrounded by endless stars and mysteries. And now, Earth had a voice in the Galactic Council, one that could not be ignored. The message they had sent was clear. Humanity was not going to be ruled by anyone. They would stand tall, side by side with any who respected their values of freedom, equality, and peace, but they would never become like the Council that had ruled through fear. The door to the bridge slid open, and a young officer entered, holding a tablet. "Captain, we've received a message from a group of unaligned species. They want to talk to us about forming a coalition, not of war, but of mutual respect." Carter took the tablet from the officer and read the message. A coalition, not of warlords, but of civilizations who desired peace. He couldn't help but smile. This was the future humanity had fought for, the future he had always believed was possible. "Send a reply," Carter said, looking up at the officer. "Tell them humanity is open to talks. We'll meet with anyone who shares our vision of a peaceful galaxy." As the officer left to relay the message, Carter felt a quiet sense of pride. The road ahead was still long, but humanity had already proven that they could overcome the impossible. They had proven they could rise above the chaos that had consumed other civilizations. The stars outside seemed a little closer now. The galaxy, vast and full of wonder, was no longer a distant and unknown place. It was a place where humanity had a future, a place where they could shape the future of the stars. The Council had fallen. The old way was gone. And now, humanity was ready to write its own chapter in the history of the galaxy. This final part shows humanity stepping into its new role, having earned its place in the galaxy through bravery and determination. Carter's leadership and vision for peace guide Earth as they form new alliances and work toward a future of cooperation and respect, setting the stage for a new era.